Hello everyone. In this video, I will show you how to easily convert currency in Google Sheets. We will learn how to work with the Google Finance formula, converting currencies both at the current exchange rate and for specific dates. First, let's look at what makes up the Google Finance formula. We start entering our formula and go to the hint. Here we see that our syntax includes ticker as a mandatory condition. Then we have attribute, start date, end date, and interval. Here you can also read more details about how these optional values are used. And everything starts with a ticker. And to display exchange rates, we set the currency value. We enter currency, colon, and select two currency pairs for which we want to know the rate. For example, USD and EUR. We close it and we set our ticker. By default, it will display our rate at the current moment. To modify the formula in such a way that we can, for example, look at our rates for a specific period, we can add the price attribute. After this, we set the start date, necessarily in double quotes. And after this, we set either the end date or the number of days for which we want to display our rate. Let's set it to 10, for example. What do we get? We now have the date and the close, which is the closing price. In this case, we see that for each day we have the exchange rate of the US dollar to the euro displayed. Let's now look at how we can convert currency after we've learned how to display our exchange rate. Let's move to our second table. Here we have the amount of currency we want to exchange and the name of the currency we want to exchange it to. First, we'll also set up the exchange rate, and we'll create a formula that will convert our initial default currency to our new currency that we've specified. We'll do this with a cell reference. For this, we add our Google Finance formula as we did before. Again, enter currency. Put USD, and you need to understand that the currency you put here will be displayed according to the amount values. Close the quotes, add an ampersand, and put the cell reference. Now we close and look. We see that we now have the current exchange rate for converting US dollars to euros. We drag the formula down, and accordingly, we see that we now have references to cells. If we change any designations here, then accordingly, rates for other currencies will be pulled up. But I want to warn you that Google Finance doesn't support all currencies, but it will work with the most common ones. So we want to know how many euros we'll get for 100 US dollars. In this case, we multiply the amount by the exchange rate. And now we see that for 100 US dollars, which is set in our formula, we'll get 95.21 euros, and accordingly the same applies to other currencies. Let's modify our formula so that we can fully use this converter and change both the currency we're converting from and to. We can add an additional column. We see that we also have the ability to change the value here. Right now we have USD set by default. Let's remake this formula so that we have two references to our cells right away. For this, we erase USD, add another ampersand, and make a reference to our first cell. We see that our values haven't changed. If we drag it down now, it will remain the same. But now, where previously you could only convert US dollars to euros, for example, you can now convert from euros to yuan if we substitute them. In this case, our rate will change, and now we'll have an indication that 300 euros in yuan will be displayed in this amount of yuan currency. and accordingly, we can change as convenient for us, either set euros or set the conversion from euros to US dollars, and so on. That is, configure fields and add additional values. Let's return to our initial value. So now you can easily convert your currency using rates and using the converter itself. But this method shows the result only for the current date. And if you need to know historical data, what was the cost of your currencies in the past, then we can modify this formula using the date attribute as well. What will we do in this case? Now we'll remove the extra formulas. And to get information for a specific date, we already know that we need to enter the price attribute and add a reference to our date. After this, two columns will be displayed: date and close. And naturally, our rate and our value will be displayed for this date. But since we need to remove extra designations, we use the index function, which will show us only the value of our rate that is located here. Accordingly, we put index and select the second column and second row. Close it, and now we only have the rate left. Drag down. Add the formula again to make the conversion. Drag down. And we see that now we can change dates and look at data for any period. That's all for today. Use these formulas as convenient for you. If you don't need to check exchange rates and make conversions for specific dates, then you don't need to complicate this formula and can leave everything in its initial value. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video. If you still have any questions, ask them in the comments.